The Minnesota Twins are getting fat off weak competition, and that's just fine. In what was likely the easiest week they'll encounter on their entire schedule, the Twins welcomed two of the worst teams in baseball to Target Field and more than took care of business, showcasing their new City Connect threads and some red hot bats while winning 6 of 7. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Week in Review podcast from Twins Daily. My name is Nick Nelson, author of the weekly recap columns that appear on twinsdaily.com every Sunday night. This is the podcast version that we produce if you prefer to listen to the recap instead of reading it. We were out of action last Sunday. I was traveling to see the Twins, actually, in Pittsburgh, PNC. I can verify a lovely, lovely ballpark. But we are back this week to cover an exciting fun and very successful week for the Minnesota Twins. So let's dive right into it with a weekly snapshot from Monday, June 10th through Sunday, June 16th. The Twins went 6-1 in their 7 games over the past week, pushing their overall record to 40-32 on the season. A run differential last week of plus 22, pushing them back into the positive with a plus 16 run differential on the season. Twins remain in third place in the American League Central, 5.5 games back of the Guardians. However, only a half game behind the Kansas City Royals for second place. That is very much within their grasp as we head here into the latter part of June. Taking a quick look at last week's game results, the Twins opened the week on Monday with a 5-0 shutout victory over the Colorado Rockies. Chris Paddock with an excellent outing in that one. Royce Lewis, stop this if you've heard me before, hit a home run to seal that win. On Tuesday, the Twins suffered their only loss of the week, a close one, falling 5-4 to the Rockies. Their comeback fell short after a Caleb Thielbar meltdown put them in a big hole. The following day, they bounced back really well, a 17-9 victory. The Bats going absolutely bonkers in that slugfest win to clinch the series against the Rockies. Then Twins opened up a 4-game series at home against the Oakland Athletics. Game 1, a 6-2 victory with Carlos Correa's hot bat powering them to a victory. The following game on Friday night, Max Kepler with a huge game culminating in a walk-off 6-5 win. Saturday's game was rained out, so a doubleheader on Sunday. The Twins win the first one 6-2. Correa and Lewis coming through big in the 4th straight victory. And in the nightcap on Sunday, the Twins were able to fend off those pesky Athletics in a back-and-forth game, an 8-7 victory to lock up the 4-game sweep and clinch a 6-1 week. We'll dive into the highlights and the lowlights and the storyline that I've got my eye on as we flip to a new week. But first, let's catch up on some news and notes. The big news of the past week from a roster standpoint, Alex Kirilloff followed in the footsteps of Edouard Julien, who was demoted about 10 days earlier to AAA. Kirilloff follows him to St. Paul, subtracting another key left-handed bat from Minnesota's offensive mix, which of course is already without Matt Wallner, who was demoted early in the season. It was hard to argue against the demotion of Kirilloff on merit. He has looked very ineffective at the plate for a vast majority of the season, certainly not offering any real positive value on defense at first base or the outfield. Alex Kirilloff is hardly one to wear his emotions on his sleeve, but to me, his mounting frustration seemed pretty evident. So hopefully a reset of his own at AAA can rejuvenate Kirilloff's confidence in his swing. In the meantime, Austin Martin has returned to serve as a dynamic bench weapon and part-time player on the Twins roster. Louis Varland also made it back across the river this week, twice, in fact. He made a spot start on Tuesday to give the rotation a little bit of a break amidst this stretch of games with no breaks. And he took advantage of that opportunity, pitched 5 shutout innings against the Rockies. Varland shuttled back to the minors after that start, but returned as the extra man for Sunday's doubleheader, pitched in long relief in the nightcap on Sunday, and helped bridge to the late relievers in that sweep-clinching victory. So Varland headed back to AAA now, presumably, but definitely with an added level of faith from the Twins when they have a need again in the future, and that may be soon. We'll talk about that in a bit. With all this roster shuffling, a new spot on the pitching staff opened up, and it was curiously, I think, Jay Jackson recalled to fill that vacancy after spending just a few weeks outside of the active and 40-man rosters. His reinstatement meant a designation for assignment for a fellow fringe reliever in Diego Castillo, who just didn't show much control or ability to miss bats during his time with the Twins. He elected free agency on Sunday, so he is now gone from the organization. Diving into the plentiful highlights from the past week, a 6-1 week for the Twins, a huge week for the Twins offense. Soft competition or not, this is a team that you can't help but believe in when Royce Lewis, Carlos Correa, and Byron Buxton are healthy and all clicking. And right now, that is very much the case, especially in the case of those first two. So let's dive in. Royce Lewis finds himself on an 8-game hitting streak after going 10 for 24 with 4 more home runs over the past week, extending his remarkable power hitting rampage since coming off the injured list. Royce got Friday night off as a matter of maintenance, but otherwise played in all 6 games, including each end of some Sunday's doubleheader, and he homered in both of those games, naturally. That seems to me like a great sign as far as his physical status is concerned, and clearly Royce Lewis's swing is as healthy as could be. He struck out only once in 27 plate appearances the past week, and has only 6 strikeouts in 12 games, all the while slugging .951. Simply unreal. I don't even know what else to say, so let's just move on. Carlos Correa posted his first career 5-hit game on Wednesday, part of a spectacular week for the shortstop that saw him notch 17 hits in 31 at-bats. Correa found his power stroke in a big way, launched 3 home runs after entering the week with 5 on the season. Correa is batting .431 in the month of June, 16 RBIs in 14 games, and potentially putting himself in position for all-star consideration with this amazing hot streak, although competition at shortstop in the American League is pretty thick. Contrary to what you might have heard, standards have most definitely been met by Carlos Correa. Seeing Lewis and Correa both excel to this degree is delightful, but not entirely surprising. We know who these guys are when healthy, I think, by now. That's been less clear lately for Byron Buxton, who has largely struggled to find his footing offensively throughout this first half for the Twins, despite mostly being healthy outside of that IL stint with his knee. But I thought the past week showed some real signs of Buck getting on track. He put together his best stretch of the season so far at the plate. Buxton tallied 8 hits in 19 at-bats, hit a home run, had a triple, drove in 6. Most encouraging to me, Buxton drew 2 walks and struck out only twice all week. You know, for much of the first 2 months, Buxton looked like he was kind of struggling to catch up. Fastballs were just getting past him. His discipline was a mess. He looked like he was constantly guessing, but he's flashing a bit more quickness, and he's connecting on his pitches, and he's laying off some of those pitches out of the zone, and really just starting to give you some of those signs that he's catching on and getting it and starting to feel comfortable at the plate. This is obviously a very small sample against some subpar pitching on the Rockies and the Athletics. And of course, Buxton needs to prove that he can avoid lapsing back into a strikeout-filled slump like we've seen in the past. But his rise and ascendance right now, I think, are very much worth keeping an eye on, because if Buxton is tilting back toward his prime form at the plate, that is a major game changer for this Twins lineup. Taking a look at some other highlights in a week that saw the offense produce 52 runs on 88 hits in 7 games. Max Kepler snapped his slump in a big way on Friday night, producing one of the biggest individual performances of the season as the team debuted their new blue and yellow City Connect uniforms in front of a packed house at Target Field, which was later serenaded by one Flo Rida. Kepler gave them a good show before Flo Rida did. He delivered a game-tying 3-run homer, and then survived a 99-mile-per-hour fastball to the elbow that looked like it might knock him out of the game. He stayed in, and he later came up to the plate in the bottom of the 9th and delivered a walk-off single. Max Kepler's OPS jumped nearly 40 points in that game alone. So really good to see him turn things around and hopefully starting to get back in the zone, because you add him on top of the 3 that we mentioned before, and this is truly a formidable heart of the lineup. which Carlos Santana is now also contributing to. He continues to beat the cooked allegations in a big way. He's become a legit run producer in the Twins lineup. Drove in 9 runs in his 7 games over the past week, 2 home runs, 2 doubles. Santana's been raking for over a month now. He's put that slow start firmly in the rearview mirror, and in doing so, he's changing the narrative a little bit regarding this front office's offseason moves, which were being, I think, fairly slammed quite a bit in the first 2 months. On that note, Manuel Margot also starting to look quite a bit better. He had a solid week, 4 hits and 3 walks as he sees his role continue to grow. If you've been waiting for Willie Castro to come back down to earth, you're probably going to have to keep waiting. He just keeps on coming through for the Twins and delivering a ton of value to this team. And last week was no different. He went 10 for 29 with 8 runs scored and, of course, was hit by another pitch. Castro has truly embodied the everyday multi-positional role in the most extreme way you could possibly imagine. He leads the team in games played, has factored in at 5 different positions, at least semi-regularly at some point in the season. So I think a lot of value there that goes even beyond the numbers that you can see on the page. Christian Vasquez starting to find a little power. That seems noteworthy. He hit 3 doubles and drove in 3 runs last week. Good to see. Helping to offset that lull that we've seen from Ryan Jeffers, which continues to persist. He's still looking to get back on track. Jose Miranda making himself an essential cog in the lineup. He went 6 for 17, came through with the game-winning home run in the 8th inning of Sunday's doubleheader nightcap. Yes, the Twins and their hitters were doing all this damage against some generally very poor pitching and low-grade competition overall, but the numbers count and they matter. The Twins might be getting fat off, soft competition as it were, but to overly stretch that metaphor, the layers of fat gained now can serve as warmth and sustenance in the event of upcoming dry spells or something. Basically, what I'm saying is it's good to get yourself elevated up over that 500 mark and do damage however you can do it. And the Twins now find themselves back 8 games in the black. So that is great to see. Turning our attention to some of the lowlights from the past week, it was not all rays of Minnesota sunlight for the Twins to reference their design for the City Connect jerseys. The pitching staff had some stumbles. Pablo Lopez delivered another underwhelming outing on Wednesday, lasted only 5 innings against the Rockies, then handed the ball to a bullpen that flirted with blowing a 6-run lead before the offense pulled away in that 17-run barrage. Simeon Woods-Richardson gave up a first-inning grand slam after walking the first 2 hitters against Oakland on Friday, lasted only 4 innings in that game. Certainly a little bit of regression is expected and acceptable for Woods-Richardson, but that was a splash of cold water to the face, to be sure. Chris Paddock is a perplexing case. He looked about as good as we've seen him in a Twins uniform in his first start of the week, shut out the Rockies over 6 1/3 innings, and then looked about as bad as we've seen him in a Twins uniform in his second start on Sunday night, coughed up 5 earned runs in 2 1/3 against a poor A's lineup. I continue to wonder if the Twins will find a way to get Paddock a break at some point this summer as he advances towards this 170-inning pace coming off 2 lost seasons. You have to wonder if the unevenness of his performance owes somewhat to just all the time off. And, he to a certain extent, you've got to be thoughtful about what the ceiling is for him from a workload standpoint. So we'll see. We'll see if they find an opportunity to get him that break. I do think that Louis Varland's strong showing in a couple appearances this week could play a role in setting that up and putting him in position to maybe be the guy who steps in for a bit. In the bullpen, Yohan Duran keeps getting the job done despite, I would argue, relying on smoke and mirrors to a large extent. He did not give up a hit in his 2 1/3 innings over 3 appearances this past week, and he did convert his 8th consecutive save on Sunday. But Duran's stuff is noticeably down, not just the velocity, the stuff, and his K rate has plummeted as a result. He struck out only 1 of the 10 batters he faced last week, and over his past 16 innings, dating back to the first week or 2 of the season, Duran has a 10-8 strikeout to walk ratio. That's not good. It might feel weird to be mentioning him in the lowlights, considering it was a very successful week results-wise, but I do feel obliged to call this out because it's a troubling sign. Unless Duran can rediscover the dominant edge and start missing more bats, it feels like only a matter of time before all that increased contact catches up with him. And you hope that's not going to happen at a very inopportune time. As much as it pains me to say it, moving to another area of the bullpen, Caleb Thielbar appears to just not have it anymore at age 37. Dating back to last year, he has just had a tough time staying healthy, and the execution on his pitches has been lacking. Hitters are taking advantage of that. Since the start of 2023, including last year's playoffs, Thielbar has surrendered 12 home runs in 50 innings, often in very damaging situations for the team. That was the case on Tuesday when Thielbar was charged with 4 earned runs while recording 0 outs in an eventual 5-4 loss to the Rockies. Rocco Baldelli ran him back out there the next day to try and salvage some confidence for Thielbar with a big lead for the Twins, but unfortunately the left-hander was again unable to get a single batter out, allowed 3 runs, 1 of them earned on a hit and 2 walks. In total, Thielbar gave up 5 earned runs without getting an out in either of his 2 appearances, and that lifted his ERA from 5.17 to 8.04 on the season. Truly very sad to see from a local guy whose baseball journey has been one for the storybooks. I personally will never forget some of Thielbar's best moments in a Twins uniform, which were many, but the team can't let sentiment get in the way of their decision-making, and you have to wonder how long they can reasonably keep sticking with him at this point. Cody Funderburk, as one example, is a pretty clearly superior option at AAA right now. I would guess that an IL stint is more likely than a DFA for Thielbar. He is notably the highest paid pitcher in the bullpen and one of the highest paid pitchers on the staff for what that's worth at a little over $3 million. Maybe his hamstring that kept him out for the start of the season just isn't still fully right. It's just hard to believe that there isn't something amiss, because even if we believe that Thielbar has degraded skill-wise, which of course is very plausible at his age, what we saw this past week was beyond the pale. I mean, he could not throw strikes or get anyone out. Just a real struggle. So we'll see where the Twins go from here. As I speak on Sunday night, he's still in the mix, and we'll see if they give him some chances in the week ahead. The trending storyline that I have my eyes on right now is Mr. Matt Wallner. He is rather loudly making his case for a return to the big leagues down at AAA. The demoted outfielder has been on an absolute tear following his slow start in AAA, notched a pair of 4-hit games in the past week, and now boasts a .397 batting average with 9 home runs in 14 games this month. Whew! That is a heater. Wallner's success at the plate has importantly been underpinned by huge improvements in plate discipline. That was a severe weakness for him in the early part of the season, both in the majors and at AAA. He's striking out less, he's taking more walks, and he is crushing his pitches when he gets them. So, as the Twins transition back here soon into some tougher competition and aim to keep chipping away at this division deficit, they are, of course, going to want to put their best foot forward and put the best roster on the field. And it sure looks like the optimal version of their lineup should feature Wallner's bat against right-handed pitchers. They know what he's capable of. They know what he contributed last year as a rookie. So there's no question that I think when the time arises, they're going to be ready to bring him back. The question is just when and how that opportunity will open up for him. I myself was a little surprised to see the Twins pick Austin Martin over Matt Wallner as Kirilloff's replacement on the roster when they made that move, just given sort of the fact that Martin offers a fair amount of redundancy with Margot functionally as a righty swinging outfield bat who profiles as more of a, contact oriented on base guy versus a power hitter. Not that that's a bad thing in this lineup. But I think they like what Martin brings to the table, and he's looked pretty good since coming back. So it seems fairly unlikely that the Twins will just reverse course on that decision in a hurry. And outside of that, I'm not sure where Wallner is finding an opening to come up, barring an injury, which I guess points us to another thing, which is that the Twins are, I know I've said this a few times, knocking on wood, etc., but the Twins are like remarkably healthy right now. Brock Stewart is the only significant player on the injured list. And, I feel like a lot of times in past seasons, these decisions would be making themselves. But unfortunately, fortunately for the Twins, but unfortunately for Matt Wallner, that's not the case this year. A little bit of a logjam holding him back. So looks like he'll simply have to wait his turn, even as he continues to utterly obliterate minor league pitching. We'll see how long that keeps up. Closing out, looking ahead to the next week, as we always do. The Twins homestand continues following a day off on Monday, with the Tampa Bay Rays arriving in town on Tuesday for a 3-game set at Target Field. These aren't your typical Tampa Bay Rays. They're in last place in the AL East. They are 4 games below 500, haven't hit very well, and uncharacteristically have not pitched very well. But this is a team that always battles the Twins hard. Obviously they're a team to be respected and not to be dismissed. So we'll see how that goes. Following that series, the Twins will head to Oakland for a rematch against the Athletics team that they just swept at home. So a couple last place teams ahead on the schedule here. No reason to think that the Twins and their offense can't keep the good times rolling and keep on fattening up. A look at those matchups for these 2 series ahead. Against the Rays this week at Target Field, it'll be Pablo Lopez, Joe Ryan, and Simeon Woods Richardson going for the Twins versus Aaron Civale, Taj Bradley, and Zach Littell, all right-handers for the Tampa Bay Rays. And for the weekend series in Oakland, it'll be Bailey Ober, Chris Paddock, and Pablo Lopez for the Twins against Joey Estes, J.P. Sears, and Hogan Harris for the A's. Sears and Harris are left-handers, so the Twins will have an opportunity to keep trying to build on their very strong success against left-handed starting pitchers this season. So a great week for the Twins. Great to see them get back on track. The ups and downs, the streakiness continue, but they're doing what they needed to do against this section of the schedule, and hopefully that will continue to be the case in the coming weeks. So thanks for joining us for the Week in Review. Again, I am Nick Nelson. Make sure you swing by twinsdaily.com for the conversation. Lots of good stuff to talk about with the team playing so well right now. And also make sure to check out our friends at the Twins Off Daily podcast on Monday. The Twins Daily writers produce a new podcast episode for you to listen to every time the Twins have a day off. It's very entertaining. I think you'll like it a lot if you haven't had a chance to check it out. I've appeared on it a couple times. The gang is really fun, and they have a bunch of great bits. So check that out, Twins Off Daily Podcast. It's on a different channel, but you can search on any of your podcast platforms to find it, and you can find it on the site as well. So we'll see you next week, and go Twins.